Aseer, let's start out with this. What is the origin, since Kanye's running around with the KKK hoodie and we're talking about the Moors in antiquity? What's the origin of the whole KKK Garbs? Who invented that? Where does that come from? Let's talk about that.
Okay. Okay. For those people that are just like waking up into consciousness and stuff like that, people who have been grown up in the whole and grew up in the whole like RBG, anti-white supremacy / black supremacy type vibe. Whenever we were in saw images of the KKK and stuff like that, we would always see like the burning crosses, and we'd see the hanging our hanging people and stuff like that, and we'd always see all these white people around pointing, looking up at them. What the enemy does is, in order for him to take more of your psychological power from you, what he likes to do is take things that were symbolic of you, right, and then flip it on his head and then turn you against it. Woo. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Or make it in your eyes whack, so that way you don't deal with it. So now he could be the only one dealing with it in secret. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then if he want to find out how to really get more science on it, he can get one of the sellouts of us that is working with him to try to explain it or whatever, so he can give him time to master it. So after the fall of Granada in 492, what history calls 1492, those conversos, meaning those Moors who were now falling under the jurisdiction of the lighter skinned so-called Spanish Roman children, they said that if y'all gonna stay here, y'all gonna have to, to go against your noble nature and basically collapse that and be on our level. So you're gonna have to eat pork. You're gonna have to, you know what I'm saying, stop dressing regally. You can't be wearing gold and all of that. Like, you can't no turbans. You gotta leave your house open so one of the Inquisitionists can come in at any time and make sure y'all not make us a lot or reading or doing math or bathing, or, you understand, this type of stuff. So it got to a point where the Moriscos, right? This is now the second generation or maybe third generation after the final fall, right? So now the whole world is in conflict. Those of us that's still left, or those of us that are staying, right? So those of them that were left in those areas that they still had dominion over, they would force you to do humiliation rituals, right? To be able to constantly give examples of the fact that of fealty. That's another way of saying fealty. That was another way they would force these Moors that wanted to stay there to continuously kind of debase themselves, to make themselves feel better after, about the fact that we had been ruling over these niggas for countless ages now. Over 1,000 years this has been going on. So that first group in Seville got together and said, all right, well, what we're going to do is we're going to use our old Magi garb, and then we'll basically venerate the melanated Christ, the melanated Yeshua, not the Caesar Borgia shit that they was trying to pump and get everybody that was melanated to start believing. You see what I'm saying? They started coming out, but they would hide their faces for fear of reprisal from the Inquisitionists that was coming through. So they would put on the hoods, right? And then they would come out with the crosses, right? To them, so now everybody witnessing them, they looking at it as a Christian procession, right?
Yeah.
For a humiliation ritual of these former Moors. But the people participating it, the niggas under the hoods now, they are now straight Muslims, right? That is venerating the cross, right? Which is to them the symbol of the four corners. You see what I'm saying? Of the world, by which they are now trying to still preserve what was left of their people by having to capitulate in this ritual. You see what I'm saying? So it was a double entendre thing. So they thinking on the outside, see, we broke these niggas. They got to walk with our crosses and do this, this, and that. On the inside, it's like, okay, well, we got to do that. We still going to believe and know what we know, but we're going to play this game through this little humiliation ritual. But in that, we're going to put on the same magi shit that we used to wear when we was doing all of the mystic stuff in places like Salamanca. You know what I mean? Which was one of the highest strongholds of magic and alchemy being taught in the world at that time.
Where's that? Where's that at? Empire. Where's that at? Salamanca. Where's that at?
A place called Salamanca.
In Spain? In Spain.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It was a heavy place for magic and shit like that. Like if you read about Madame Blavatsky and the rest of them types of people, them occult type people, they will always talk about how the Moors were the ones that taught all of them out of Salamanca and all of that. Because again, at the end of the world, which is in 1492, that's when all of this stuff started happening. That's when everybody started calling themselves different shit. That's when everybody started banging on everybody. That's when this group started going against that group. That's when they start amalgamating with each other. That's where they start like killing people for amalgamating. It just becomes a whole thing of over 379 years of just straight intermittent conflict, according to people like C.M. Bay. In the course of the United States Corporation, it might be more like 238 years. You know what I'm saying? Maybe a little more, a little less. But essentially, that's what the ritual was. So then what they did was, after they took control of our national governments here, right, with the Act of Congress of 1871, that's when they create the terrorist organization called the KKK, right, the Knights of the Ku Klux Klan. And then what they do is they adopt the same garb, right, as the Seville Moorish, or what they some people call it the Moorish Order of Seville. Some people call it the Negro Order of Seville, whatever you call it. They took the uniforms, again, that these Moriscos had already had their shit popping with it. They adopted it and then start using it now to terrorize all of the descendants of those prisoners of war who had now, by this generation, fallen under the Negro codes, fallen under the Reconstruction, fallen under the POW thing, fallen under the Negro Act, fallen under all of this disassociation, right? And now they are now using that to now formally torment them and terrorize them as a means to further disassociate them from anything that, again, was symbolically to them. Because at this time, they didn't know. All they seen is white hoods and shit walking around and hanging people and burning people and stuff, burning the cross and all of that, right?
Yeah.
When really the KKK that's doing this now, they are ritually doing it as a humiliation ritual, as a fealty ritual for the, again, disenfranchised Union, Freemason, white oligarchy that is acting as the proxy soldier, the proxy force, when behind them there's a bunch of melanated Negro or melanated so-called West Asians, Europeans, who are now under names like the Farnese or the Aldombradi or the Bergoglio or whatever they calling themselves. You understand? Mm-hmm. And so they use them, they back them, and now we, after that, a generation after that, now everybody understands now that this thing is now associated with the KKK, and that's it. Mm-hmm. Nobody even know about where it actually came from back in the days. Mm-hmm. Just like when they was calling you Sambo. Remember when they was calling you Sambo? Mm-hmm. They're like, oh, you a Sambo. You nothing but a Sambo. You a Shine, right? All of that type of shit, right? Or when the but Sambo is God. That was the name of the God of the Mon people, melanated people from the Nagar nations, the Serpentine people who helped build up places like Angkor Wat, right? The other one over there. And so that's the whole Indus kingdom, the whole Harappan kingdom, that they don't know what happened to them people. But they had the same historical context with Sambo, to the point that was the God. They said there was no God higher than Sambo Judea, right? So then what happens? Now they call you Sambo here in America under the whip and shit, and now Sambo evil? No. Just like when the Wops was calling you a moolie, right?
Yeah.
Hey, you stupid moolie. Hey, moolie, right? They say what? It mean eggplant. No, it don't. It mean teacher. It mean teacher. Because when the Moors came in there and the broke ones didn't have no money, what they started to do was take the Circassian slave white women and they used to offer them as money. So we should take them as money. You understand? They started offering up their own people for slavery to these Moors that they owned all of this money and this land to or whatever. So that way they could hopefully move up. You see what I'm saying? By having their daughters maybe have a baby by a sheik, maybe have a baby by an emir or a prince. And then now they come up. But what happened? When this amalgamation comes up, the baby is, the mother's station don't change. So she's still a part of the harem. She's still a slave. The baby now get to see, oh, this is how the greater Moorish Empire is and all of that. But what about my mother?
Right.
See what I'm saying? So what happened now, you get a whole generation of these type of kids who now is trying to, who see their fathers, right, as the heads and creators and developers and conquerors of civilization, but then they mothers, you see what I'm saying, is not even seen like that. They got to be under their stepmother, who is his original wife, melanated wife, you understand? And she ain't treating this nigga good. So you get a whole generation of these amalgamated noblemen, and after a point now, they get together and decide that they're going to overthrow their parents. See what I'm saying? We're not going to be Moorish no more, so we're going to be Spanish. We're going to go back to being Roman. We're going to go back to being pagan, Dad. Fuck you, Dad. I'm going back with mom's side of the family. That's what they did.
Is that
That's
the
what they doing now. That's what they doing now. They're doing the same shit now.
Does that lead us to the Holy Roman Empire?
Yes, which again is all melanated people. That was started in 962 by Otto and Edith. Otto was darker than me. Edith was like maybe Selena's complexion. The Holy Roman Empire, like what made them holy was the fact that they were a part of the greater push that destroyed the old Roman Empire. The old Roman Empire was destroyed at the same time that the Temple of Jerusalem was destroyed. That was it. By the time you got to the Council of Nicaea, that's a whole different corporation that's ran by melanated ex-Roman who are still pagans, right? Who are also Freemasons, for lack of a better word, at that time. And they still were going to find a way now to control the masses by now, instead of fighting against what happened, they're now going to embrace it. So now the same people who literally nailed this nigga to the cross, they're going to create a Bible for you to worship the nigga. And then they're going to be the ones to interpret it for you. You understand? So there were groups of Moors, there were groups of various types of Christians at that time who again were all melanated and stuff like that, who wasn't with that. There was a whole faction under a dude named Arius. They call it the Arius controversy. And Arius was like, okay, y'all want to now try to flip him or Yeshua, right, into this version that is really just a cut and paste version of Apollo and this one, that one. We're not with that. If he was divine through the whole thing, not just the point when y'all say he was that. So then that became a contention and they went to war against that. You see what I'm saying? Because the pagan Constantine type Moors, they're just using this shit to be able to couch all of their pagan shit and hopefully be able to, bring back some of that old stuff that we wiped out.
So you saying Constantine was more? You saying Constantine was more?
The original pictures of the Council of Nicaea, of Constantine, of Abraham, all of these people was melanated. They only became Caucasian after Reconstruction. Like, they want us to believe that white folk built pyramids, that white folk ruled Egypt. And I'm like, okay, let's say that's true. And if I can accept you saying that, how come when I say, well, the ancient people of ancient Europe